Okay, hello and welcome everybody back to Cities Skylines. This is episode 11. And we're finally going to be completing or starting a big project that we talked about in the very first episode, I believe, where I said that I might cut a big ass channel straight through the middle of the country. I'm going to be creating a shipping canal. So that's what we're trying to do here. Giving it a little shot with the vanilla ones, but I don't think they really are designed to actually work as canals for this purpose because they didn't really work at all. So I have to use my own. Just use the leveling tools to level it out and then use a key and drown the entirety of my country as well. That happens a few times in this video, but that's what we'll be doing here. We'll be starting to work on more industrial areas around here while we're at it. So that's what we'll be doing the next few episodes. So far I'm just doing the canal as a straight through with these keys on either side. So it's a little under detailed. I probably should come back to these and I need to look up what normal canals look like, because normally there's a little bit more going on. They look a bit more industrial, and often they have those whatever you call it, where they got the different levels where the cargo ships will go in, or whatever ships will go in, and then the water levels will change depending on what side they're going to. This one's probably maybe small enough that I don't need that. This isn't like the Panama Canal or anything. It's not quite that large, so both sides are probably just going to be sea level. So I think that's okay. But still, I need to, when I'm doing things, I need to, I'm not familiar with canals in my regular life. So these are one of the things where I need to look online, see how other people in the Cities Skylines community do it, and then see if I can make a more realistic interpretation of a canal like that from there. And, I don't think many canals in real life have road bridges that regular citizens use throughout the day. So it's been a bit difficult to try and figure out what I want to do here. So, especially with the pillars in the middle. But I think normally the shipping canals, they would have a separator between ships that are going one way and one that are going back the other way. So I might have to do that, and that way that could be where the bridge support is, because I think that's a bit more realistic. I don't think canals aren't normally just open cuts that you can just go through and just hope you don't hit the other cargo ship as you're going through. I think they normally have walls to separate it, and everything's very make sure that there's no hitting of anything, make sure everything's very safe and everything's clear before you're allowed in. So the canal itself is probably the most under-detailed part of this video, and I will be spending more of the time on the shipping port part of this industry area for this video. We'll get back to those floating people that you just saw, because you see more of those in a minute. I was just trying to find the best way to do this for now. So first I was doing a big key all the way down to the edge of the city, and I loaded up and I found all these people flying through the sky, and I followed them back and they all landed in the train station. Apparently they were waiting for a train. Don't know why that happened. It makes me worried that maybe this game is less stable than I would like, and any moment I will load up the game one time and something will have gone very wrong. I'm hoping that's not a sign of bad stability, because I don't want to lose all the work I've done so far, even though I have learnt a lot as a Cities Skylines creator and how to design cities in general in real life. I've learnt a lot since I started this, and I would actually be able to make a better city now than when I start out the series, because it's sort of a big new hobby of mine to start getting into this, not only Cities Skylines highly detailed builds, but also just city planning and that in general. So while I would be able to make some improvements, I would be ashamed to lose my progress I've made so far. I'd rather keep it, and if I want to make any changes, then I'll just make changes, and you'll be able to see how I change it as I develop as a creator myself. So first thing I had to do was, I tried that vanilla way where I just put the cargo ports just on the side there, but that's like, that's like how you do it in vanilla, right? That's not how, that was clearly a not very realistic way to do it. So I went online and I looked up some pictures of shipping ports and stuff, and they tend to come in these arm things where they have these little outcropping bits, and that's where they'll have the cranes which will unload the cargo ships from there. So that's what I'm trying to do here, and try and make sure I can get all of that looking right. I was just sort of trying at a few different scales and a few different techniques. Like the first time you saw me do it, I tried putting down the keys first and then raising up the land, and that was horrible. So you have to raise up the land first and then use the keys to smooth it out. That takes me a few different times because that first one you saw me do was a little bit too narrow, and this one is also a little bit too narrow. So I actually do end up taking this one down again and making them a little bigger, because I think they were a little bit too close together for what I wanted. I'm not sure if, I think, makes sense that they'd want a little bit of wiggle room so you're not crashing a cargo ship into the side of your docks there. Just seemed like something that would be best to be avoided. And then I'm swinging down. Originally here I was having a rail from every single one of the individual ports, and then they would all connect to this big main one. But I do end up changing that out because that makes not a ton of sense when I thought about it, because it's a small country, and when you're playing vanilla, then making efficient cities, then sure, having a rail directly from the cargo port makes some sense. But this is a small city. If they were bringing in cargo to the city, it would just be trucked out to where they need, and while there will still be an amount of rail cargo needed as well, presumably, like if this was a big shipping port for the area, then this would probably be where a lot of the cargo for surrounding countries as well, like the ones we're connected to on either side, they would probably get their stuff shipped here, and then we would use rail to ship it to their countries. But it doesn't really necessarily make sense. I'm pretty sure it's not realistic at all to have the cargo come directly from your cargo ports. Normally there'd at least be some separation where you at least just drive them over to the cargo, like a cargo rail station, and then go from there. Then it needs to be all connected directly and make this big mess of rail, this big spaghetti web of rails. So here you see me just changing up the again, I was just making them a little bit bigger, which I thought made it look a lot better, and then I'm trying to find a key that made sense for the area. I ended up going for this metal one, a little kind of industrially. But yeah, this city, I wanted to have a very strong industry area just because of the nature of the location. It made sense to me. This is a very highly developed and very touristy country, which normally isn't super conducive with a heavily industrialized country or city. Normally very highly developed and rich ones like this are normally getting out of the industrial area. But for this one, being at least I thought having a strong shipping port made sense. Even Singapore and Hong Kong, they're very developed, very advanced, but they still are obviously going to be keeping that shipping port area of their city, because it just makes perfect sense for their location, and that's how they get in a lot of that money that they use to be a very developed nation like that. So this is the final layout that I have for the shipping port on this side. It's a little bit wider than it was last time, as you can see, but hopefully still has a lot of capacity to get a lot of cargo off. I sort of had a look at a few different ports around the world. I think this is a fairly realistic number if you want to have a very strong cargo port. I didn't really get exact numbers, to see exactly how many there are in, Hong Kong and Singapore or California or Indonesia, some places where I was looking for examples for big strong shipping areas. But this just seemed to me this made sense. I was that seems like a decent amount. I can see that happening. A little bit earlier, you saw me, I was trying to find maybe an intersection or interchange to have here. I don't really like interchanges in my city. It's very small and limited, and I'm not trying for a, highway centric city here. But I know that there can be a lot of industrial traffic in this game, so I wanted to have something a bit more substantial than just a regular intersection to handle the traffic, especially because, and also the idea for this main expressway is to try and limit stoppages as much as possible as it's passing through the country. So in this case, we brought back this interchange style roundabout thing that we originally had back in the main part of the city, which we then tore down for the sunken freeway, which we did a few episodes ago. So bringing it back and hoping that it works a little bit better this time. I think with it being just a single one, I think it'll work fine. And I didn't want anything too substantial or taking up too much space, so I think this is a good way to find a good middle ground between not being too big, not being too crazy, but still getting good traffic flow. So we'll see how it goes. I haven't really started playing much with actual traffic flow, so I don't really know how well it's holding up yet. So we'll see once we get back into the game and do some future episodes. I'm just fiddling around with these train tracks. I'm still speeding through a bit quicker because, like I mentioned, I take those out anyway, but I just like to show my process for how I think when I'm trying to do things, and then eventually I'm like, that was stupid, why did I ever think to do that? And then go back and change it all out. Making all this concrete, of course, makes sense for the most of the city will just be concrete, especially industrial. You don't think of grass, so make it all concrete. And then I'll just start working on the shipping yard where all the cargo containers are, because that was the coolest thing that I saw, where I was looking at different shipping ports around the world and having these huge lots full of cargo containers was really cool. Again, this little bit I'm speeding through a little bit quicker again, because this is again something that I do end up changing up, because I'm using these generic stacks, and then turns out they looked a little bit too generic. They're you can see from above, very similar color palettes, and when you go down, all of the containers all have the same, they're all from the same company. So I was using these as the base, and then I was taking singular containers, ones you can see me using here, and sort of phasing them through the middle of them to give them different faces. So it was kind of using up twice as many assets in some parts, and also it still, even with doing that, trying to make it look more unique, it still ended up looking a little bit too samey from above, especially, but even from down below, they do still look a little bit too samey. And you'll also notice once I starting putting down a road grid here, turns out that they really aren't lined up because they're all different sizes, which I didn't realize when I was putting them down. And I was kind of too lazy here to change it up, so I was just manually pushing them around. But that does lead to being a bit wonky and not really looking like they're well laid out. They just kind of plop down wherever, which wouldn't really make sense for efficient, or even as you can see here, automated cranes. You don't want them just put down wherever. You want everything to be very symmetrical and placed down right where they should be. So you will see me in a little bit come back and change that up a little bit. Again, just blasting through some of this train works because I don't end up using much of this, so I won't show you too much of that. Yeah, I'm just doing something similar that I did before, where I'm turning the middle of in the middle of the intersection, I'm making it so it's tram only, so that it uses some kind of lane mathematics, where on the outside it's 6 lanes, and then they can go off onto the slip lanes, and then functionally the middle turns into just 4 lanes of traffic for cars rather, and then once the slip lanes merge back on, then it becomes that 6 lane again, so kind of a lane mathematics, which is good for traffic. This is the other side of the canal. I'm doing it on both sides. I'm doing a little shipping port. I'm mainly focusing on just one this episode, and the next episode will be showing you the other side and getting into more of the industry area. But I thought it made sense to have it on both sides. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But if a ship was coming to drop stuff off here and then go back to where it came and didn't have to go to the other side, then I thought it made sense to have unloading docks on both sides for the sake of efficiency. And because, you know, I imagine getting ships through a canal isn't crazy fast. I don't really know the throughput of like the biggest ports in the world, but you know, imagine there's lots of procedures to make sure the way is clean, make sure everything's clear, and then if they have to raise and lower the levels, and I don't know exactly how it works. I need to do some research, but it just seems having them on both sides is going to be fine. Plus a lot of capacity. Like I think now, even like with all the supply chain issues you've been having these past couple of years, I think like I heard in like California, there's like lines where ships can be out there in the water just waiting for over a week or two, just waiting for a place to their turn in line to get into one of these slots to get unloaded. So I think having a little bit extra capacity isn't going to be too bad a thing. To make the train station back so I can have these train tracks a little bit closer makes it a bit more sense. That makes it all symmetrical again. And I will keep at least one cargo rail yard, but again, I won't have it connected directly to the docks like I have here. I'll just keep one of these separate ones so we can see here. So this is me a different day. I'm coming back and I'm going to redoing these containers, as I was talking about, where I wanted things to be a bit neater. So I'm using these assets which have the little grid on the bottom, which looks pretty cool. And then I'm using more stacks here to fill it out a little bit because they were a little bit sparse. I wanted to have a look of a very heavily used one. And then just using a few more little stacks of some other different companies. You've got to see some Evergreen and some other real life companies. I don't know any other names off by heart without being able to see. But then I'll put those down there as well. And makes it look a lot more varied, a lot more realistic than how it was before. Plus I really like the look of the having those little squares marked out. And now they're all equal size, so I can do this road grid in between. And overall I think it looks a lot better now than it was before. It was also partly because I wanted to, I have a ton of assets downloaded. I can't stop. It's like an addiction. And I have so many that's really slowing down my game and taking a while to load up. So I wanted to find a way to fill this area out while also using less assets. So that's what I did here. I unsubscribed from a bunch and then I was able to do this whole thing with less assets subscribed than I had before. As I mentioned before, any like grimy areas, especially using industrial, there's like back alleys and stuff, that's always the areas where I want to be putting down these decals. So that's why here, these big areas of open concrete, it looks a bit bare, and I'm slapping down, all these tire marks and putting down like just scuffing, putting like parts where there's like low areas where I put like puddles, and I've got drainage areas, and I'm putting down some drains on all the different corners and stuff, and putting down some, I need to find a place to put some like tire marks where like you can see kids, like, they've come and done like their like skids and donuts around here, like it's Fast and Furious, super cool. So yeah, I think these decals really bring out an area, especially in a more grimy area like this. And I really like the idea I had here, where I was assigning a number to every single one of these little, sections where there was containers. So that made sense that a business would do that. So each one is numbered logically, depending on what row and column it's in. And because usually these containers storage buildings are now actually functional, so they will store things. I don't know if they will really, I don't really pay attention obviously to how well the game functions as Cities Skylines designed it to be played, but still I guess it's nice to know that if I start running the game properly, that actual materials could be stored there that the game will try to bring around to other businesses and such. So that's pretty neat actually. And here, finally, just getting rid of these, yeah, what do you call it? It's the rail sections, and now it's all just for ships, and then they will get shipped off to, well, they'll come straight into this container yard, and then anything that goes onto a rail to surrounding countries will then, be just trucked just quickly over to the rail yard, which you can see where we got the, these cargo rail stations. So I think that's a more realistic look and makes sense. I don't think having the rail directly from the cargo port was that necessary, but we'll need to probably expand and do some more work on that rail yard soon. Well, this is the end of this episode. It's kind of come up a bit quickly. I wasn't prepared for it, but this is the end, and this is sort of cut in half, and then next episode we'll be doing the other side, and we'll start doing more of the proper industry area. And I'm started doing that already, and I'm really happy with the look, and it really fills out the area really well. So hopefully if you like this episode, you will tune in for that one, and I'll see you then.